Hello, my name is Dean Contover, and this is Current Buzz. Thank you for watching today. Today we have an interesting gentleman. He's a Minuteman. He's a captain, and his name is John Greenwood. He lives locally, and he's a member of the 6th Middlesex Regiment. And he goes to certain events like the Chelmsford Parade, etc., and things like that. So we'll talk about that, and we're going to talk about where did you get the name 6 Middlesex? Where did that come from?
Well, there was actually a 6 Middlesex regiment. The area was all broken up into regiments.
Okay.
And certain towns were members of certain regiments.
Okay.
And this whole thing was put together before the Revolutionary War began. And there was actually ranking officers from certain towns that would lead those men to certain places to do whatever needed to be done.
Was this after the French and Indian War or before?
I'm not sure if they were before or after. I mean, definitely it was after, but I'm not sure if they had them before.
Okay, right. We were in the school name after Lieutenant Colonel Moses Parker. You know that. In fact, you were gracious enough to give him a plaque in regards to stating that. But let me give you a little history of Lieutenant Colonel Moses Parker. Lieutenant Colonel Moses Parker was a lieutenant colonel from Chelmsford, Massachusetts. He was involved in the Battle of Bunker Hill. In the Battle of Bunker Hill, Lieutenant Colonel Moses Parker was wounded in the leg. He was captured by the British, taken to Boston. He was a POW, left on the docks to dry out like a fish, and he eventually died from his wound. He died on July 4th, 1775. I'd have to check that record, but that's what his date of death is, July 4th, 1775. Okay. It sounds fishy in regards to July 4th, 1776, but we'll check it out. And so he became a hero in Chelmsford in those days, and that's why they named the Parker Middle School after him. And there's a nice granite monument outside the Parker School that says Moses Parker, Lieutenant Colonel. I always like telling people outside the New England that my daughter went to a middle school that was named after a Minuteman, and they look at me like, what? So that's what we do. So, yeah. So the 6 Middlesex is made up of how many people right at this moment? And I know you're looking for recruits. So
we're always looking for recruits, especially with the 250th anniversary for the country coming up. Now's a great time to join because there's going to be a lot of activities, probably beyond what we normally do.
Parades?
Not just parades, but reenactments and things along those
So
lines.
give me the dates exactly when. I know the dates, I have it written down, but because the audience is watching.
Right. So the 250th anniversary of the events, commonly known as Battle Road, which began with the battle in Lexington Green and then the North Bridge where we turned them back, and then their whole trip back into Boston. That was on April 19th, 1775. So in 2 years, 2025, will be the 250th anniversary of those events. And I know there's going to be a lot of activities surrounding that. They're recreating the retreat in Lexington and in Concord. They're having a whole day, which they do every year. They call it Battle Road. It's on the Saturday before Patriots' Day holiday. So they recreate everything at that time, and they have battles at different places along the way. There'll be the Concord Parade, which we usually do every year as well, but will have more significance because this is 250th. And then in 2026 will be the 250th anniversary for us declaring independence.
Right.
So again, there'll be a lot of events surrounding that. Local towns, I'm sure, will be doing stuff as well as the bigger towns and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of events that are unique because it'll be the 250th.
Right. Okay. Were you involved with the 350th birthday of Chelmsford?
Yes,
that was a mother of a parade. If you remember that,
there was no Chelmsford Minutemen in existence at that point in time because they had disbanded back in 1980 after the bicentennial. So we got them back together again. We had 5 of the people that marched back in those days, it might have even been 7, that marched back in those days that we got to march with us. And we got some new recruits, and we ended up with about 15 or so that marched in that parade representing the town of Chelmsford. Since then, we have kept that going. We are now up to, generally, we can expect to get anywhere from 20 to 25. We're pushing, trying to get 30 in our group. A lot of them carrying muskets, a few flags. We have ladies that march with us as well. We have some kids that march with us.
Oh, cool.
Dressed up in little outfits with little guns. And we also have music occasionally. The Concord Minutemen have a group that performs with them, drums and fifes.
Okay.
And
That's cool.
They have come and helped us out with events, and we've gone and helped Concord out with events. So there's a lot of that crossover that happens because of the fact that we don't have the numbers that they had back in the bicentennial days, which is why we're always looking for new members.
I think we have the telephone number up on the board. I think it's up there.
I don't know.
Yeah, okay,
it is
yeah,
up
it's
there.
up
Yep.
there. Contact John, and he'll.
Yeah, they can
Inform
contact
you.
me about joining up if they have an interest. We are always looking for new people, men, women.
Okay.
We have one woman who has joined that dresses as a man, which was something that happened back in those days. If they knew about it, they would generally send them home. But if they don't know about it, they fought, throughout the Revolution. I don't think there's any real record of how many there were because obviously they didn't know they were women.
Yeah, good point.
But there were a number that did do that. So we have no problem with ladies that want to dress up as guys, or for ladies that want to dress up as ladies and march with us.
Cool.
Either way, it makes the group look bigger. And like I said, we've got a few kids. There's 3 of them that dress up and march as well. So we're open to getting anybody that wants to get involved.
If I remember correctly, tell me if I'm wrong. The 350th parade in Chelmsford, right? To me, was the mother of all parades in Chelmsford. That was on July 2nd, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't remember exactly what day
because-
it was.
because-
Was it July 2nd?
Yeah,
it would have been only if July 4th.
Because there were
fallen
more
on
people in that parade because it was on the 2nd, because other organizations had other places to go on July 4th. And if I remember correctly, and that's why it was so big.
That's very possible. I mean, I was in it, but do I remember,
Yeah,
I don't remember
yeah.
the date?
Okay.
Normally, the 4th of July parade is always on the 4th.
That's correct.
Unless the 4th is a Sunday and then they do it on Monday.
I see. Let me ask you.
I don't know.
I'd have to look at my calendar to
Yeah.
see when July 4th. In regards to the 250th anniversary, have you heard anything yet from Chelmsford Parade Committee or anything
no, not
like
from
that?
the parade committee yet. I'm sure they're just worrying about this year's parade at this point. They'll worry about that in 2 years.
Yeah.
And probably it'll be more the 250th in terms of 26th parade is going to be the one that's going to be bigger because that's the one for our countries.
Yeah, that's correct. That's the one
As
I'm
opposed
talking
to
about.
25, which is going to be big for the Concord parade,
Right.
for instance,
Right.
because that's the anniversary of that
I see.
thing. So it's all going to be town to town. So we'll just have to wait and see who, decides to make a big deal out of it and who doesn't. Chelmsford's the biggest parade in this area.
I agree. I mean, I tell people that Chelmsford are patriots, not those other towns that are Tory towns.
I live in Pepperell, and the Pepperell has a great parade also. And they do not do it the same day as the Chelmsford parade because they know that Chelmsford parade draws the most people.
Right.
And they will not hold their event the same day as the
Which is
Chelmsford
understandable.
event because they want to get some of the groups that go to Chelmsford to come to Pepperell. So their parade's actually very big and is very good, but it's on a different date. So I'm sure that a lot of that's going to go.
You know what I'd like to see is an honor guard from the U.S. Constitution come up in that parade. And they have them.
They do have it, yeah.
Yeah, they do have them. They make requests. What was the best parade that you've been in? That you?
Wow, you're talking, this is my 48th year, so you're
That old,
talking,
huh?
Yeah, I'm that old. You're talking about a lot of parades. Probably Chelmsford's 350th was the biggest one. The bicentennial parade actually the
I don't remember
bicentennial
that.
parade in Concord was pretty big
Oh,
too.
is that right? Yeah.
You know, the 225th wasn't as big because 25, you know, was kind of an in-between.
Yeah.
But it was still fairly big. But that Chelmsford parade that you're talking about, 350th, was a pretty big parade.
Yeah. That's why I always say it was the mother of all parades. Let's talk about marching to Concord, North Bridge.
Yeah.
The old North Bridge. Tell us what you do. You get up early in the morning.
Right.
Let's go through the steps.
Okay, so we assemble on the Chelmsford Green at 3:45 in the morning on the Patriots' Day holiday, which is the Monday the 17th this year. We step off at 4 o'clock in the morning, which means we start marching towards the bridge at 4 o'clock in the morning. We usually have a number of the Chelmsford guys and some others from our group, as well as Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts that go with us. And we will march a route that takes us down through Carlisle Center. When we get to Carlisle Center, we stop, and that's usually about 6 o'clock, and we join up with the Carlisle Minutemen, which are also part of the 6th Middlesex. So we join up with those Carlisle guys. We have a ceremony there. We fire the muskets off, and then we head off toward the North Bridge through the Esterbrook Trail, which goes through the woods. It's a very nice way of doing it. Kind of throws you back to that time and what it would have looked like.
Is it traffic or is it?
There's no traffic in Esterbrook because it's a trail through the woods.
Oh, no kidding.
It comes out in Concord about a quarter of a mile from the bridge.
Do you get an escort from that point to
No, we just march from there right down the street.
All right.
And dodging traffic, or traffic dodging us, really. So we go right down the street to the North Bridge, and then we're in the Concord Parade. We have to usually wait around for a while because there's ceremonies there and everything, and then we march in the parade. So altogether, we end up doing about 13 miles.
Okay, so what's the distance between Chelmsford to Concord?
That to the North Bridge, that's 10 miles.
That's 10 miles. Okay. So then you're so tired you have to do another 3 miles.
Yeah, then we have to do it's not 3 miles to the to the end of the parade route.
Okay.
You know, it's probably a mile and a half, but then we got to walk back to where the cars are parked, so add that in.
I see. Yeah.
So altogether, you know, it's like a 13-mile day, but, you know.
So if I wanted to march, I'd have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, go down, drop my car off at the center of Chelmsford, right?
Well,
and march with you?
You can, but you got to have somebody that's going to pick you up in Concord and bring you back.
Oh, okay.
Got to keep that in mind too.
Yeah.
What we do is we drop cars off in Concord the night before, and then we know how many people are going to be in Concord that are marching there.
Right.
So I'll park at the Green in Chelmsford, usually at the church because there's nobody going to be there. It's not going to be open. And we'll assemble on the Green, we march down, and then when we get down in there, and the parade's all over, we go back to the cars, and then somebody gives the Chelmsford people a ride back to the, but that's just for us Minutemen. Anybody else, the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, they make their own arrangements in terms of getting back from Concord.
Who supplies the water?
They bring their own water.
Everybody
we bring our water, they bring their water.
Okay.
We give them a patch. Any of the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts.
Oh, no
that
kidding.
March. We have a patch. I don't think I have.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, they should have brought one.
But
I want a patch.
You want a patch?
Yeah, I want a patch. I like patches.
It's a patch that I earned as a Boy Scout back in the 70s when they did the same parade, the same walk with the then Chelmsford Minutemen, who are, of course, all retired now because they're a lot older. Nope, don't have one. But I earned that, and we had it recreated. We sent it to a company that makes patches, and they recreated the exact same patch. So the kids today can earn, and we've been doing this now for the last maybe 8, 9 years, leading up to this
So what's
event.
the patch say? I mean,
It shows a Minuteman, and it says Chelmsford to Concord on it, and it has the date, 1775. So it's a nice little patch, and they can, you know, use it to collect with other patches.
I think it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully we have a bunch of the patches, and hopefully we're going to have enough to get us through the next couple of years, because probably after we hit the 250th, we may not do it from Chelmsford anymore until we get to the 275th, which would be down the road.
Let's talk about your rifle, because you said that you...
Musket.
Musket, I'm sorry.
Yep, not rifle.
I'm old school. I call it rifle.
I know.
You know.
Yeah, they're muskets, smoothbore musket.
Smoothbore. Explain what smoothbore is.
Smoothbore means that the inside of the barrel is smooth.
Right.
There's no rifling. Rifling is a groove that
twists,
spirals down the barrel, or a series of grooves that spiral. And what they do is they spin the ball.
That's right.
When the ball goes out, it spins. And when
It's
it
more
spins,
accurate.
it's more accurate.
Right.
And it'll go farther. These are smoothbore, so they go down the barrel, and wherever they hit last is what direction they're going to go into. So they don't necessarily go straight. They might, if you know your own weapon, you'll know how to fire it to hit something. And generally, the colonists were better shots than the British, because the British fired in a direction, and the colonists fired at specific targets because they had hit something they wanted to eat.
Good point.
So when they're out hunting, they've got to hit that thing. The British, they fired in
like
mass.
an Indian, you mean? I don't mean I don't mean to be subtle, but I mean it was used against Indians. French and Indian War.
Yeah. And this right here is a brown bass. It's a musket that all the British soldiers carried. It was standard issue for them. It's a war weapon, which is a larger caliber. It's a 75 caliber gun, and this one would be issued to everybody. It's not the normal type of weapon that a farmer would have. He'd have something that was smaller, because his game's going to be more like squirrel or rabbit or pheasant or something along those lines. And he doesn't need something that's this heavy of a caliber.
I see.
So generally speaking, a lot of our muskets tended to be, smaller bore muskets.
Okay. That's where you get the caliber from.
The caliber
smaller
is the size of the hole at the end.
Okay, good.
So it's basically 3/4 of an inch, or, right around that spot. And it's a flintlock, which means that when you pull the hammer back, there's a flint right here that's held in the hammer. And when it hits this piece of steel, it creates a spark. So you pull the trigger and you get a spark. I don't know how well that...
Let me see. Let me look at the television. We'll do that. Let me see if the spark comes.
Go one more time here. Just focus in on that part right there, and hopefully...
Yeah, I think you can see it.
You got a little better that time?
Yeah.
The big thing right now with these guns is we're looking for them.
Looking for them.
We're looking
Why?
to buy them. What's happening is that we now have new members that have been joining our group. We've gotten about a dozen new members in the last few years, and we need to outfit them with muskets, and muskets are hard to come by.
Why is that? I mean, they're newly made. Yours is what, 50 years old?
Yeah, this one's over 50 years old.
But people do make them.
They still make them. Pedersoli is a company that's in Italy that makes them, but because of COVID and everything else, they've kind of slacked off on what they've been doing. They haven't been sending over as many.
I see.
So we're getting them in dribs and drabs, and they're very expensive. What we're looking for, and what I'm hoping from the audience, is that there might be people out there that have a musket that their father used, or whatever the case was, or grandfather used. Maybe they've got it sitting in the basement or sitting in the closet. They haven't used it in years, haven't thought anything about it. If my phone number's there, if you can contact me, the musket could be worth anywhere from $500 to $1,000 to us to buy.
Yeah.
As long as we can, see what kind of condition it's in, we'll come out and take a look at it, see what the condition is, and hopefully purchase it.
Some people might think a musket might be 200 or 300 years old that their father had, and that may not be true.
Well, the weapons that are that old, and some people may have original muskets, we can't use those.
Okay.
Because the barrels are not proofed like today's barrels are. They're 250 years old. I don't want to be shooting a musket that's 250 years old. Even though you're not putting a ball in it necessarily, it still could have the potential of fracturing or bursting, and you don't want that to happen. So we don't use any weapon that's that old. We only use the more modern ones from the 60s up.
I see. That's why I wanted clarification.
This weapon's in fantastic shape for having been fired 10,000 times or so over the last 50-something years. So
they are loud.
They are loud, yes. without a doubt they're loud. But that's one of
that
the things
was-
people love
no.
about us. So we make a lot of noise and a lot of smoke. So we always get big cheers out of the crowd
Yeah.
when we fire off the
Yeah, I
muskets.
know in the parade. What's the? Is there an interval, or just you give the command as a captain of the regiment or the troop or whatever, or the unit,
Yes.
and you just say we're going to fire. We
call
stopped.
them the company. You're in a
Oh,
company.
the company. Okay, yeah.
So when you have the company together and we're marching in a parade, no matter what town it's in,
Yeah.
it's up to the individual captain that's running the company
Okay.
to decide where he wants to fire. So, like for instance, in the Chelmsford parade, we will fire probably 30, 35 times in the course of that parade, which is around 2 miles long. And it's, to me, when I tell you to get ready to fire, it's going to be based upon how much crowd there is at a particular spot.
Intersection or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's at an intersection because people will walk down from their houses and they'll all be right around the intersections.
Right.
So when we get to that intersection, we'll stop, we'll fire, we'll start marching again. I'll have them reload so that when we get to the next spot, we can fire again. When we get to downtown, where there is a ton of people, we will basically fire as many times as we can get away with from, basically the St. Mary's Church or just before that, all the way to the end of the parade.
I see.
So we may get off 10 or 12 shots just in that stretch of the parade.
Yeah, if you've never been to the Chelmsford Parade, see it. It's a great parade.
Yeah.
It lasts for about 2 hours. And if you have young children and you live in the Merrimack Valley, I would suggest that you take time on that day. Make sure that you get there early because there are people there with seats, beach chairs and stuff that they put out.
Yeah, they can only put them out the night before
the
now,
night before
but you can
now.
put them out the night before.
Well, it used to be when a week before that
Yeah.
people would put them out.
and the town stopped that. They started picking the chairs up so
Well,
people
that was a
learned real
good.
quick.
Yeah, that was a good
Not
idea.
to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, you want to get there early, and then you want to watch for the Chelmsford Minutemen, which is, we're part of the 6th Middlesex Regiment, so everybody gets together for that parade. That's one of our bigger parades.
Yeah. So again, this is Captain John Greenwood. He's with the 6th Regiment, Massachusetts, right?
6th Middlesex.
6th Middlesex. That's right. The county Middlesex. And if you didn't know, Chelmsford was one of the first units in the Battle of Concord and Lexington in Concord.
Actually, Acton was in the front.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Chelmsford had people there. I don't know how many exactly made it to the bridge in time for the battle.
Okay.
Acton was in the front of the group. There was an estimated 400 Minutemen that participated. Acton was in the front because they were the only town, for the most part, that had bayonets. And if there was going to be a battle on the bridge itself, the British have bayonets. You wanted to make sure that you put the group with the bayonets
Yeah,
in the
of
front.
course.
That's why 2 Acton Minutemen were the 2 that were killed at the bridge because they were in the front rank.
I see.
Everybody else conquered and all the other towns, and there were, I think it was 11 towns that were represented
Right.
there. All the other towns were in the group. I'm not sure, I don't think they were broken down by
I think it was 40 that I heard Chelmsford. If you said 400, 40 makes sense.
It may be.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah,
positive. You figure there's going to be more people for the towns directly around Concord. The farther away you are, the less people made it
Right.
because a lot of times, like for instance, if you're a Minuteman, you're a first responder. When you hear that there's a problem and where it is, you go there directly by yourself. If you're in the rest of the militia in the town, then you would meet on the green and you would march as a unit. So the militias didn't make it for the most part from the, like a town like Chelmsford, they didn't make it all the way to the bridge.
I see.
Because they had to assemble first and then march together. It was the Minutemen themselves that were generally speaking, the younger guys who ended up leaving and were able to get there in time for the battle that happened.
Yeah, listen, John, thank you for coming. I mean, it's we have to wrap it up.
Yeah, not a problem.
You know, and
I see you every year. So.
yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I'm glad to see you driving.